Thank you very much, sir. Now, to move on to the final talk for today, I would like to invite Dr. Jabraj Kingsley to the stage. He would be introducing the final resource person for today with us. Now on stage is Dr. Jabraj Kingsley, Assistant Professor of English, St. John's College.
It's a privilege and a personal joy for me to introduce Dr. Subbulakshmi, the resource person of this post-lunch session. This introduction is special because Dr. Subbulakshmi and I shared the same classroom for a year during our student days. It is truly inspiring to see one of my friends grow into an accomplished academic researcher and an educator. Dr. Subbulakshmi is currently serving as Assistant Professor in the School of Social Sciences and Language, Vellore Institute of Chennai, VIT. She has served for about 20 years in the higher education. She got her PhD degree from SRM University with the specialization in Chinese American literature. Her research interests include diaspora and feminism, mythology and Indian literature, science fiction and media, food studies, and digital humanities. And she has authored a book titled Digital Humanities, Integrating Technology and Scholarship. And her research is widely recognized through Scopus, Google Scholar, and ORCID. She has presented and published a number of research articles. As someone who has known her from our student days, I can confidently say that her passion for learning, sincerity, and perseverance have always been her deciding qualities. Now friends, let us invite Dr. Subbulakshmi for the address. Madam, the stage is yours.
Yes. Thank you. I think the host will be sharing the slides. Am I right? Should I share the slide or the host will be sharing the slide? Maybe I'm not giving the option. Should I send the request to share the slide? I hope you are able to in my slides. So, can you share the slides now? Yeah, I have sent the slides, PPT to your mail ID. CPI seminar mail ID. Can you confirm the showing? Yeah, thank you. Okay, am I audible now? Shall I continue? Yes, due to some network lagging, I am just switching off my video. First of all, I must thank everyone. Okay, thank you so much for logging in, because I know how post-lunch session works. Although you might be fighting with your body to control yourself, not to nap. joining me in this struggle. So I really appreciate you being here. I am Dr. Subbalakshmi. Today we are talking about someone you have probably only ever met through poems in a textbook. That is Rabindranath Tagore. He is a poet, philosopher, educationist, and also he is the first non-European Nobel laureate for literature. And this Nobel laureate has occupied a leading position among his contemporaries, especially in the Indian freedom movement. Shall we move on to the next slide? Well, most of the national leaders of his time viewed the nation, state, highest politics, moral, goal, everything. This Nobel laureate was also here basically telling the world nationalism is a kind of problem. How can it be when people are fighting for freedom? An Indian freedom fighter, through his literature, he says nationalism is a kind of problem. Because most people are even willing to say, they are afraid of even telling to say it aloud. But he says that. He is one of the sharpest critics of nationalism as an ideology. Because it is not against patriotism, it is not about the nationalism, the concept of nationalism. Tagore's view of nationalism is totally different. It is always deeply committed to India's freedom, dignity, culture, and self-respect. So, when he talks about India's freedom, it is about the nation, dignity, it's about individual, culture, it's about the society, and self-respect. Again, individual. So, everything is holistic. His concept of nationalism is holistic. Can we go to the next slide? So, Tagore is a patriot who distrusted the nation and the state. His period is between 1961 to 1941. So 1861 to 1941. He renounced his British knighthood in 1990 in protest against the Stalin-Volobak massacre, which is a clear evidence that his critique was never about the indifference of Indians suffering for freedom. He supports India's freedom, but he is indifferent. He differentiates in people suffering for freedom. But what he saw was the dangerous character in the name of nationalism, which has become a political machine that happened even before freedom, before 1947. In the name of nationalism, what is happening? So, can we go on to the next slide? Yes. So, what is the historical context? Tagore's post disengagement with the idea of nationalism came through a series of lectures, which is later published as a book called Nationalism in 1917. He was writing against the backdrop of the First World War, which existed for 4 years, and the rise of aggressive nationalism in Europe. Europe wanted to be the dominant nation, so the First World War happened, and again next Japanese militarism, everything, which is for the more rapid modernization. Everything leads to his lectures. And this nationalism, his book Nationalism, is all about, not only about India, it is also about the nationalism in the West, nationalism in the India, and nationalism in Japan. There is so many. What he talks about is nationalism, the book Nationalism. It is more than a book. Nationalism is more than a book. Because he says he published his lectures, at the end he included his poem. When he talks about the nationalism in the West, it is the most sharpest German critic. And when he talks about this nationalism in Japan, which is delivered during 1916, as we said, it is a warning against Japan. Because Japan started mimicking the West nation worship kind of in the name of modernization. And this talks about nationalism in India is most about India's urgent problems, okay, because in domain of freedom fighting, we are losing our social, culture, and the problems related to society, culture, and politics. Okay, often these communal problems are elevated toward the level of politics. Okay, it is just like a warning. And this book ends with the poem, The Sunset of the Century. You know how the poem starts? It starts with, I quote, "The last sun of the century sets amidst the blood-red clouds of the west and the whirlwind of hatred." You know how it ends? The poem ends with the line, "And know that what is huge is not great, and pride is not everlasting." I am quote. So, the book Nationalism is more about his ideology. It is most about the structure and the reception. And closer to home is India, the Swadeshi movement of 1905, which arose in response of this partition of Bengal, that shows in both the rising power, how the power shifts, and the darker, the communal potential of nationalist sentiments. The old people who fight for the freedom of India now, they are dividing. They are dividing into two states. Okay, so Tagore had briefly supported the movement. At the same time, he grew disillusioned as it turned toward violence, communal violence, intolerance. They could not bear if someone disagrees to that. Okay, so according to him, nationalism is not just a blind patriotism. So, can you move to the next slide? So there's one critic about this nationalism. Okay, what is his concept of nationalism? So he derived some 5 concepts. First one is love for the nation. It is not blind patriotism. Love your nation, but when you love your country, Tagore believed that people should love and serve their country. However, patriotism should not become a hatred towards other nations. I like my country, I love my culture, I love my people. That doesn't mean that I have to hate other country. I have to hate people of other culture. That's what he insists on. And he has the strong criticism about this Western nationalism. He argued that European nationalism was based on competition, one over the other. Who is the strongest? Who has the control? Imperialism, controlling people. Militarism, making people suffer. And you make the people suffer and you say we are the best nation in the world. What is the point in that? And then economic exploitation. All these. He has rejected all these concepts. And he insists on such nationalism will lead to war. And it leads through. It had led to wars and colonial domination during the time of freedom. Still, the domination exists in some or the other way. So, he suggested humanism above nationalism. Tagore believed in humanity, which is greater than the nation. If you love your people, automatically that leads to the love for the nation. You start respecting other culture. You start respecting your culture and also others. He emphasized on this brotherhood, universal brotherhood, cooperation, collaboration, respect, respecting others' cultures, respecting other tradition. When I respect other culture or tradition, that doesn't mean that I'm demeaning mine, my culture, my practices. No. I'm keeping mine at the same time. I have a good respect for other cultures and traditions. So how can this nationalism happen? How can you bring in this nationalism in an individual? Okay? He believed that nationalism can come only through social reforms. Social reforms, India is rooted in its culture. Okay? And there are so many problems which has to be rooted out from India, like poverty, illiteracy, caste, discrimination, social inequality. There are so many things. Okay, only if you remove all these things, India can become stronger. And also, how can you do that? How can you remove that? It is not by an individual, a change in an individual. It can be removed through education. equipping yourself, self-reliance, depending on yourself, rural development. Okay, why villages has to be developed? Villages has to be villages, but in a modern way, in a developed way. It is not about urbanization. Instead of political slogans, yes, of course, political slogans will kindle the emotions. Okay, you feel emotional when you hear all these things. But what it leads to? It leads to violence. It leads to war. Right? So he is totally against this aggressive nationalism. So he always warns that excessive nationalism destroys individual freedom and moral values. So what are gain if you destroy the other's freedom and moral values? So you want to show that you are dominant? No, he advocated a balance. Okay, you have to maintain an identity, a national identity, but your values must be universal. I cannot be individual. I can be Indian. At the same time, my values should not be limited to Indian. It should be universal human values. Yes. And also, he advocates the humanism and universal. Can you move on to the next slide? Let me brief the features of nationalism, Tagore's nationalism. So Tagore's nationalism is based on humanism and universalism. That is, you have to maintain an identity, at the same time you have to be universal in your values. And he is against this militarism, imperialism and racial superiority, which is about the suffering of the people. And this does not run to anything to an end. Rather, it will increase. Okay, the militarism will increase the suffering of the people. Imperialism will increase the bodies of the people. Rationalism will not let people live peacefully. That's why he ignored all this. And then promoting. What he has to promote? Culture, unity and spiritual values. So in this world of globalization, now we are living in 20th century, culture, unity, how is it possible? It is possible. It is not a unified culture. Culture unity doesn't mean that it is not a unified culture. It is more about understanding others' culture, respecting others' culture. We have multiracial people. Okay, earlier we have multi-religious people in one family. Now we have multiracial people, multi-ethnic people in just one family. So that has to be encouraged. Okay, that leads to the spiritual values. Okay. Next, he emphasized on education, rural reconstruction, that leads to social upliftment. Social upliftment doesn't mean that I belong to this society, I belong to this caste, and I have to change this. If I'm educated, I got a good job, then my society will be uplifted. Yes, your society will be uplifted. At the same time, your narrow-mindedness should be uplifted. Okay? And he always advocates the international cooperation and peace. International cooperation, as I told you, this universal human values. Okay, it should not be limited to India. So when he talks about this nationalism, he always brings the differences between Western nationalism and Tagore's nationalism. What is this Tagore's nationalism? We'll see in the next slide. These are the differences. Western nationalism insists on political power. They believe that the power brings down everything. The power can control everything. But whereas Tagore's nationalism believed in human welfare. And next is militarism, as I told you, it leads to the suffering of the people. And if people live in peace, okay, they have a huge respect for the nation. They have a huge respect for the society that eventually or gradually leads to the peace of the nation. Then competition. It is not about competition, one over the other. It is always about cooperation. Tagore's nationalism is always about cooperation, collaboration. Then superiority. There is no word called superiority in Tagore's nationalism. According to him, there is nothing superior except the power we have. That's what his spiritual means. That is the superior power. Okay, no human is superior to other human. Okay, he always embraces universal brotherhood. Material progress. Material progress is so momentary. I have this, I have that. Our country has this power. Our country has that power. It's not momentary. It will change. You remember the last line of the poem which I quoted? Pride is not everlasting. So even material progress also, it is not everlasting. Materials will change. Only moral and spiritual development will remain till the end of the life. So, Western is more about state-centered, equipping the nation. Okay, how powerful are we? Okay, it guides the welfare of the people. Whereas established nationalism is always human-centered. He believed that if an individual is developed, it eventually leads to the development of the society, and if the society is developed, it leads to the development of the nation. So, there is all these things. Do you think that everybody accepts all this? No. He also faces many criticisms. Okay, his core, can you go to the next slide? His core criticism of nationalism is about nation, society. Okay? Tagore draw a sharp distinction between nation and society. Nation is a political structure, is a mechanical organization built around power and self-interest. But society is organic, it is ethical, it is communal, and people, they join together by their values, by their language, right? So it is a creative community. He described the nation as essentially organized, self-interest people, a mission of power that reduces human relationship. So you are forcing yourself, you are forcing the people to be together. You form a relationship, you work together. It will not happen. You cannot force a human to make relationship, to connect with other people. It has to come from within. So that's what this organic society, that is the difference between the organic society and the mechanical structured nation. That is the core criticism of Tagore's concept of nationalism. And he has several standards, 3 arguments. First one is nationalism subordinates moral and spiritual life to political and commercial efficiency. First of all, what is the link between moral and spiritual life to political and commercial efficiency? Where lies the connection? I am morally good, I am spiritually good, I am spiritually acute, and I have a conscience. I will not make any mistakes to my conscience. And if I enter politics, okay, if I do any business, okay, I will not make any mistakes. Even people around me tell or persuade me to do that or convince me to do that, I will not do that. Okay, so I have to be true to myself, and then I can, so that I can be true to my society. So that leads to nationalism. It is not a blind patriotism. And this kind of nation, a mechanical organized nation, it breeds aggression. Aggression over people, aggression over ethnicities, and imperialism, one over the other. I am controlling you, attitudes. That will prevail. So when nations compete for power, something is so clearly between both Western colonialism and Japanese militarism. Okay, that is the best example he gives. Aggression and imperialism. This Western colonialism and Japanese militarism, as far as he sees, it leads to aggression and imperialism. There is no fruitful outcome from it. And also, it risks turning aggression movements into mirror images of oppression they resist. So, when British ruled us, we resist. As a whole community, as Indians, we resist. Okay, we got our freedom. When this partition happened, again, there is communal rise between the people of the same nation. Okay, so that's why these kind of liberation movements, it leads to oppression. So Tagore viewed this nation not as the concept of nation, not as the natural spirit of people, but it is artificial. it is like a force feed to people, okay? These power-seeking structures, mechanical structures, or organizations, they implant all these thoughts in people. They want them to believe in it, okay? But to work the structure, it displaces the genuine human connection. Okay, shall we go to the next slide? So, he is studying about it, but what he proposing, what is his concept? He advocated universal humanism, okay, which is called as Vishwa Manavata. Vishwa Manavata means the true freedom to the fullest. Okay, how can an individual can enjoy the true freedom? It lies in the fullest. If I am able to express whatever I feel, I got the full freedom. But freedom always comes with responsibility, isn't it? So, when I have the freedom of expressing myself, it should be a creative expression of human fellowship. Can I limit it to India? Can I limit it only to my society, only to my friends? No, it is across boundaries. That's why he says it is universal humanism. It is not a merely political sovereignty. So if any people from abroad, we accept. Okay, if it is from US, we accept. If it is from UK, we wonder. And if it is from Africa, there is a slight hesitancy. No. Vishwamanavata is more than that. It is across boundaries. He believed that India has the root of attaining this cultural and moral regeneration. Okay, this politics or political agitation, whatever, political sovereignty, whatever, it's all implanted, it's all man-made. Okay, whereas India is deeply rooted in this culture and morals. That's why he has developed three concepts. One is Santaniketan, then Sriniketan, and Swadeshi Samaj. Santaniketan, it's a place, okay, and now it is considered as an international university. Which is concerned around the idea of world making a home in a single nest. Maybe Santaniketan is a place where you have to go and visit once to understand what is this cross culture is, what is this multiculture is, how people are respected, how others' cultural traditions are respected. Because I know one of my friends, a Japanese woman who got, she lived there for a few years and she got a baby over from there. So it is a very good environment. Okay, she says it's very peaceful, it's very organic. Okay, this place for cross-cultural learning beyond this narrow nationalism. Okay, nobody will judge you. Okay, people always look forward what you're going to say. They listen to you. All these things. Okay, so his concept of that is the best example for his concept of universal humanism. Next, Sriniketan. Sriniketan is an institute. Okay, it's more about the rural reconstruction project, and it helps many villages to equip themselves, like self-help groups, to develop cottage industries and this village welfare programs, all these things. Again, I repeat, it is not about the urbanizing people. Okay, it is about self-reconstruction, rural reconstruction. They remind the village things in the same place, at the same time how they can develop in the village, in culture. Okay, so that's what is more about Sriniketan. Then Swadesi, the meaning of Swadesi is people, a movement. Okay, it is like a nation building. So Swadesi Samaj is more for the self-reliance. Okay, and as is self-reliance, now we have this program of making social and economic self-reliance rather than confrontations. And when he came up with, he always criticizes nationalism, aggressive nationalism, and he proposed this universal humanism, and he told what some thinkers required. Yes, they also face some criticisms. Okay, actually, you might know the father of nation, Mahatma Gandhi. Can we move to the next slide? Mahatma Gandhi. There is always, next slide please. Tagore and Gandhi, they both opposed colonial rule. That is a similarity. As freedom fighters, as people who belong to this Indian freedom movement, they always oppose this colonial rule. But they significantly differed in their ideologies, in their philosophies. Gandhiji viewed disciplined nationalism and organized non-cooperation as necessary tools for achieving freedom. You don't cooperate and you be patriotic to our nation. Yes, it is there. He also supports ahimsa, which is non-violence. Tagore supports non-violence. At the same time, he worried, though he is respectful to Gandhi, he worried that these movements might suppress individual reasoning skills. What will happen if an individual stop reasoning why and what? It will become a dogma. Dogma means it is a set of beliefs. You start following that blindly. Since our ancestor did this, since our sibling did, since our leaders told you to do so. Okay, that should not be suppressed according to Tagore. There is one post-famous example that in 1934 there was an earthquake. It's what is it? The Richter scale is 8 something, and Gandhiji suggested, Gandhiji declared openly, saying the disaster was happening. The people follow this. And how can it, right? This is where Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi differs. When a disaster happened in 8.0 magnitude, okay, how can it be because of the sin of untouchability? Why did it happen before? Why it happened now? So, but Gandhi believes in the cosmic phenomena. If you keep on doing something wrong, nature will punish you. Yes, it is fact. Okay, it is a cosmic phenomenon. At the same time, Tagore argues physical facts should not mix with these cosmic phenomena. Physical facts, physical facts is the reason for these physical catastrophes. If there is a national disaster, you know, what is the reason behind it? So there is nothing to mix with the ethical principles with cosmic phenomena. Everything has a reason. So he doesn't believe this unscientific solutions. Okay, this is where Tagore and Mahatma Gandhi differs in their needs. Yes, do we have to follow Tagore or Gandhi in it? We have to follow Tagore because this unscientific superstitions will not lead to anything, right? And he doesn't stop with that. He expresses his ideas in his literary works also. In the next slide. So I have quoted some of the works of Tagore, which is a critique for his ideology of nationalism. Okay, it is not confined to his essays, in his fiction, poetry as well. If you take this Garagare, which is translated as The Hole in the World in 1916, it is about the conflict. Swadeshi, it's a nationalist movement, and a character, how he spoils himself by joining Swadeshi movement, how he spoils his rational thinking, how he is manipulated, and at last it turns as a destructive thing to him, to his family. So that is explicit in his Garagare. And Gora, you might have studied in your MA. So it explores the question of identity. Okay, where am I? Why should I belong? Should I limit myself to this identity? So what is inclusivity? Okay, the inclusive idea of India rather than our nationalism. Okay. Of India, rather than bound to be one narrow ethnic or religious identity. India is known for diversities. isn't it? So he unites all the states of India. Okay, so that is his idea of pluralism. And after these famous examples, there are some criticisms against this Tagore's position. Okay, what are they? I'll tell you in the next slide. So Tagore's this kind of stance, okay, it is not about, what is it? He doesn't ask people to follow because he himself advocates people should reason out why it is wrong, right? And people should think and they have to choose. Instead of forced to follow, they have to choose what to follow. So his, without, it is always criticized, right? So some contemporary scholars, they feel that his ideology of nationalism is belong to elitist. Elitist, it is very partial to the elite people. It is impractical. How is it possible for a man not to follow anymore? So I choose to follow anymore. It's just my decision. They feel that it is impractical, especially for the colonized people. You have to live as a community. You need to protect your nation, isn't it? So how is it possible to be an individual, okay, without having a nationalism thought or anything? But Tagore always argues about Tagore always rejects the aggressive nationalism, not the concept of nationalism. Okay, because he always wants, you can see his dangers of this aggressive nationalism through his literary works, and also when he says about the values of nationalism, immediately you can they see the world wars, okay, and the rise of fascism, many ethnic conflicts still existing on all these are examples, right? And Tagore was not against this India, okay, because since he supports universal brotherhood, universal human values, he is not against India. He has a huge respect for Indian culture. Even he wants that as a weapon to protect yourself. Have your culture as a weapon. Have your education as a weapon to protect yourself. Okay, to maintain your dignity. So Tagore was not against this Indian self-respect culture of freedom. He was against the deification of national state. Deification of some ideology in the name of God. Or you take that ideology as God, blindly following. Okay, so that is a distinction worth returning to throughout the discussion. Okay, and yes, Tagore has given this, take this position, and does it end here? Does it end here? There are some relevance. Can we take these ideologies now in modern times? Yes, you can. I have divided his ideologies as two parts. One is related to identity, borders, information, and the second one is all about cooperation beyond borders. Okay? So, Indian self-respect culture, and the second one is more about cooperation beyond borders. Let's see the examples in today's scenario. Okay? Where can you see the rise of ethno-nationalism? What is it? Ethno-nationalism and majoritarianism. That's a threat. A popular nation, that's good. But what is this ethno-nationalism? A nation with one particular group of people. It's where this racism exists. And majoritarianism, since we have a majority here, particular community, particular caste or community's majority here doesn't mean that they belong here, isn't it? It is universal. So it echoes his warnings that nationalism can suppress the internal minorities. How? Can you give some example that what is happening in India? I want to quote some of the examples, like debates around this CA, Citizenship Amendment Act, okay, which is proposed, and it is proposed by the National Register of Citizens NRC, and they always include people who belong to that particular religion, okay, and they always link the religion with the supporters. Okay, the supporters say that it is related to humanitarian measure and all, but but in the name of CIA, they exclude the minority people from the neighboring countries. Okay, and also this debates over beef and jihad. Okay, legitimism, all these things. Because when we talk about beef, it is more about it is a frequent happening debate. Okay, which can be domestic and it can be an international discourse. Okay, majority of people talk about it. Okay, and next we have, see, I'm quoting these political example. It is not to say that I'm taking this side. Okay, it is not about taking one side. Okay, it is just as an example how these examples mirrors Tabo's century-old concern. Okay, he says this aggressive nationalism leads to ethno-nationalism. That's what's happening in the name of beef bans or love jihad. Okay, next, globalization. Okay, the major threat to globalization is preserving their own culture. Yes, globalization versus nativism. Native, why should I protect my native? Why should I protect my people? Okay, so this is what the idea of Vishwamanavada. That means it argues, which anticipate the arguments of cosmopolitan, interconnected human identity over rigid borders. Yes, it leads to, okay, it leads to, you can quote some real example like Atmani Nirbhar Bharat, that is local for local. All these are best examples for the debates over globalization. Why should we protect this local people? Okay, what is the need to protect this local people? Right? Next is social media. Social media and manufactured nationalist sentiments. Okay, it is all about how the social media forces people. Okay, it is not an organic expression. Okay, it critiques, and social media acts as especially once it is identified as a source of nationalist and religious. It spreads fake news about India. If anything happens, especially this Pahalgam attack, there are so many old videos which is passed on to people, and it creates some kind of riots among people. Okay, so it resonates with the critique of nationalism. Okay, it is engineer, mechanical force, and who operates all these things? Who operates all these things? It is the political structure. Okay, somebody is getting benefited out of all these. Okay, that's what this concern is. Okay, a concern that maps on to today's worry about propaganda, populism, all these things. Next, when he talks about living with nature, okay, living with environments, the global challenges. Nowadays we are talking about the climate change, pandemic, isn't it? So this COP26 Punjab is an example of this global challenges, right? So this International Solar Alliance is an best example. So that's what his universal thing about. Okay, cooperation beyond the borders. So International Solar Alliance is the best example. And then during this COVID, we offered many vaccines. We supply vaccines to many countries. Okay, that shows the global interdependence, and it also outweighs the national self-interest. Okay, I am Indian. I love being Indian. At the same time, doesn't mean that I cannot help the other country. We are very much willing to help the other countries. Okay, so that is one concern. Next, his educational philosophy at Santipiketan. I told you, a world in a nest that is holistic, nature-based, internationally minded. So, basically, you're broad-minded. Okay? So, this continues to be cited in continued debates and pedagogy. How a subject should be taught. Okay, what is the purpose of education? And what should be taught? All these things. Now, we have this NEP 2020 as a best example. NEP 2020 emphasis on the activity-based experiential approaches, okay, towards the existing schooling system, And it wanted us to create a good role word carry to mention, okay, that which echoes the Tagore's vision. Okay, I want to give some takeaways from my lecture. Can you move to the next slide? Takeaways of my lecture, just 4 points. Tagore, can you move to the next slide, people? Okay. Tagore separated love from one's own people and culture, from allegiance to the nation state as a political machine. Okay, one's love for people is different from being a nationalist, blind nationalist. Okay, he warned that unchecked nationalism breeds aggression and conformity. So if you follow something blindly, that leads to aggression and erosion of individual conscience. Last one, third one is his alternative, what he suggests. He always suggests universal humanism, which is grounded in culture, education and cooperation, which offers valuable lens for evaluating the resurgence of nationalism today. Right? So, your mind, your groundworks of viewing things should be there to live as a community, as a society. And his ideas remain productive even today. They counterpoint on ongoing debates about identity globalization and the limits of state power. So I hope you have some takeaways from my presentation. So thank you for your patient listening. Thank you, audience. If you have any discussions, I'm open to.
Okay, does
I'm
anyone
open to discussions if you feel that anything is impractical in Tagore's philosophy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Subbulakshmi. That was an eye-opening talk, and I'm pretty sure that...
Am I audible to you all? Because the speaker is not audible to me.
Yes. Yes. Thank you very much. Check. Check. Thank you very much, Dr. Subbulakshmi. That was a very thoughtful and an insightful talk that you gave. We thank you very much for the time that you spared so that you could be with us here in this one-day national seminar on Indian philosophy on nation and nationality. And dear candidates, participants, now the paper presentations will start in another 5 minutes. So your halls are there in the Department of English. So I request all of you to move to the first MA classroom in the Department of English. So once your presentation is completed, you can move back to the auditorium for the valedictory section. Thank you very much.